Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Coast to Coast Sports Talk. I'm your host, Kristen Karam, and alongside me are our analysts, Cameron Collins and Big Dave Miller. There's been a lot going on in the sports world this past week, so let's get started. The New York Yankees shortstop Derek Jeter announced this past week that the 2014 MLB season will be his last. Dave, what are your thoughts on his announcement?
Well, I mean, Major League Baseball is going to lose another star like they did for the past 2 years, Chipper Jones and Mariano Rivera. What I am getting tired of, though, are these players announcing their retirement going into the last year. I feel that if it should be like mid-season, you're starting to feel something, or if you feel burned out, like going into the end of the year, like don't give us a year of anticipatory wait. So we have to see all this. We saw last year with Mariano, all these teams giving him gifts for like being the best closer in the world, and now with Derek Jeter leaving, we're probably going to go through the same thing. He's probably going to get the last at bat, standing ovation in the All-Star game if he makes the All-Star game this year. Even if he stays healthy again this year, he basically snapped his ankle in half. So, doing the same thing as Mariano, him tearing his ACL, going back for his final year. So, Derek Jeter's a very classy player, but overall, I'm just getting tired of this because we're going to see this again as the trend keeps continuing. So, I feel like announcing the retirement beforehand is kind of, in my opinion, selfish. You had Todd Helton, Lance Berkman, and Roy Oswalt just retire this past offseason, not wanting everyone watching them in their final year. So Derek Jeter's going to get into the Hall of Fame. He's going to get all the accolades after he retires. To get it during his last year, I think it's just a little too selfish.
The only part that I agree with is kind of when you were saying with the rat bat or whatever in the All-Star game is I remember last year they named Mariano Rivera the All-Star game MVP. And there was many other guys who are more deserving of that award, but strictly because, it's going to be Mariano's last season, let's give him the MVP. That's the only part of it that I agree with you. I think it's a smart decision to announce the retirement before the season because, coming from a player standpoint, if you come out and say this is going to be your last season, it gives you that much more incentive to play that much harder to go out on top. I've talked about it before. It's kind of what we've had with Peyton Manning that led up to the Super Bowl. All the questions were, well, if he wins, is he going to retire? Well, if he loses, how many more years is he going to play? And he's just constantly being questioned about when he's going to retire. And Jeter would have been getting the same, kind of media attacking of, well, how many more years do you have in you, And if he knows that, like we said, he's had the injuries, he knows his body's not going to hold up for much longer. And so he just comes out letting everybody know, hey, this is going to be it. So, it gives him that much more reason to just, put it all on the table and go for it. Because if you have in the back of your mind that you're thinking about retiring and you come up just a little bit short, you're going to want to keep coming back until you get it.
You also saw what happened to Tony Gonzalez.
I know, and I understand Jeter. He has 5 rings, and he's won World Series. But who doesn't want to go out on top? Anyone who's that kind of a competitor, like we know Jeter is, he wants to go out with a championship.
Well, if he wants to do it with the Yankees, he's not going to get it this year because they're basically on the downfall. They're not anywhere close to where they were.
As much as I hate the Yankees, Beltran, McCann.
The only way Beltran's going to be the best factor for them is if they get into the playoffs, though.
They almost snuck in last year, so it could happen. And like I said, as much as I hate the Yankees, I don't want to see that happen. But I think it's smart for him to come out and say it beforehand so there's no questioning. Everyone just knows, this is it. because we've seen the injuries. He's had some setbacks trying to get back from the injuries. So he knows his body's not going to let him go much longer. So he's won 5 championships, so he doesn't really have much left to prove. So it's not like, oh well, I'm going to keep playing until I get that championship. No, he's won it. He's pretty much accomplished everything there has been to accomplish. He's probably going to go down as the greatest shortstop of all time. As much as I don't really like him, I can't deny his ability. And so I just think it's a smart decision. And, he probably will get the same, the Mariano treatment, the Chipper treatment, the farewells, his last trip at all these different stadiums. But, for a player, I'm sure they love that, rather than just, season ends and then they come out and, I'm not returning next year. And then it just blows everyone out of the water, and it kind of blows up your team's plan.
Right. The NBA All-Star Game and Slam Dunk Contest took place this weekend, breaking multiple records such as total points in the game as well as points scored by a single team. Cameron, what are your thoughts on All-Star Weekend?
All-Star Weekend is kind of just reinforced the direction that the NBA is headed. I was reading an article earlier today about the amount of three-point shots put up in the game. There was a total of 100 three-point shots combined by both teams put up in the game. And the 3 big men between Dwight Howard, Roy Hibbert, and Joakim Noah only played a combined, I think, about 30 minutes in the game. And they only combined for about 12% of the points. And so it's kind of just showing the trend that the NBA is headed towards with, the traditional big man kind of is no more. It's more about that running gun up and down the court. Got to have sharpshooters type offense, have that hybrid LeBron type player who can play down low, but, can dribble, can shoot, and do all that, and it just kind of reinforces the fact that there's no defense in the NBA. Obviously there's less defense in the All-Star Game. We were surprised with the Pro Bowl this year with the NFL. There was more defense than in years past. But the NBA is kind of going in the opposite direction, where unless you're standing right underneath the hoop and somebody goes, tries to go up over top of you, they really kind of just give them free shots and try and put on a show. It's kind of what the NBA is becoming all about nowadays.
Overall, I think the All-Star Weekend was pretty much a bust for them. They changed the format in the dunk contest, which is probably the worst thing that they could have done. Apparently it looked good on paper, but whenever they finally put it into progress, it sucked. You couldn't just sit there and admire the dunk that you just saw, because you just saw one, and then all of a sudden you turn, there was another one right there. So in the three-point contest, still struck my interest, though. You had the choice of where the money ball was for. You didn't have to go on like the last one in the corner. Some people like to shoot from the like a 45-degree angle or like right up top, where you have the easiest shot. But just the overall weekend for the NBA, like it doesn't really hype up as much as it used to. You used to have those like players that would go out of their way to be in the dunk contest. You have LeBron who won one, and then he just doesn't want to do it again.
Well, and that was the problem this year is, when you saw the guys who were going to be in the dunk contest, it sounded like it was actually going to be a really interesting, fun dunk contest, but then come find out the format, it kind of killed it.
Yeah, and also in the All-Star Game, when you like set a record with points by one player, most three-pointers made in one game, it, like you said, it changes the aspect of having the big man down low. It's kind of like the transition to football, always like doing the run game and doing the pass whenever you had to. Every team had a big man to help them win a championship. That's why the Trailblazers went after Sam Bowie instead of Michael Jordan. They didn't need Jordan. They needed a big man. It costed them in the end, but now it's all about the hybrid players. And so you can't really get this as much. But the NBA All-Star Weekend was just a total bust.
Yeah, and to just kind of tack on, I didn't really touch on the dunk contest thing, but yeah, I believe there was only 8 total dunks in the dunk contest, and the event lasted, I think, over 2 hours. And just, I have to imagine, unless you're there, I didn't sit down and watch it, but I can't imagine that's going to keep your attention, for over 2 hours when you have a dunk and then you've got 10, 15 minutes of, spectacle and entertainment, thrown in between. So, yeah, like you said, kind of the All-Star Weekend for the NBA is kind of just going in the wrong direction and not really garnering that much attention.
Right. On Friday, number 2 Arizona fell to Arizona State in a shocking fashion when the Sun Devils stole the ball and scored on a fast break to go ahead by 3 points. The Arizona State fans rushed the court even though .7 seconds still remained in the game. Officials had to clear the court of fans before they could restart the game, which ended with Arizona missing a buzzer beater and the Arizona State fans rushing the court for a second time. Dave, what are your thoughts on these events?
I've been turned against rushing the court. Now it depends. Like if this was no time left, then I'd be fine with this. But there was 0.7 seconds left, so the fans were already on there. They want their moment. They want to hang out with their friends on the court. Then they had to be cleared, and Arizona, with 0.7 seconds left, for about a 40-foot shot, they still almost made that to tie it up. But then after the missed shot, they rushed the court again. It's not as exciting as it would have been the first time. To go out of your way to just be on the court again, it kind of shows you, like, not really selfish, but like they want to be on the team as well. Even though they're not the ones performing a show and getting the glory, they just want to be on the court with them. Planned court stormings are like the worst thing now in college basketball. You can plan it weeks ahead with a team, with your biggest rival, but it just doesn't feel right if it's planned. If you're just sitting there not thinking that you're going to win, then all of a sudden it comes down to like a buzzer beat or something like that. That's when that can be like appropriate, because then you're feeling down. You don't think it's going to happen. Then all of a sudden it happens. So for these fans to rush the court twice, it makes me want to be as rational as guarding the side and just banning court stormings. But that's a little too rational for now. But you can see, like, these students just want to be on the court. So that's all it is.
Yeah. I actually watched the end of this game when it happened, and I kind of agreed with Bill Walton was on commentary, and he was kind of just absolutely disgusted with what had happened because, you watched it earlier, the Arizona State player, he ran down and, he dunked the ball, and he yanked up on the rim, celebrated up on the rim, and they also said because the player stormed the court, that was the reason they didn't give out a technical, because any other time, that's a technical foul. And, like you said, just we talked about this last year during basketball season, during this kind of fad of court storming. There was all these upsets and, all these fans storming the court, and we were all for it last year. It was exciting to see, team upsets, a team that's, supposed to be way better than them, and the fans storm the court, and it's so awesome to see. And then you have something like this where, there's still time on the clock, and all the fans storm the court, and it just becomes chaos. And like you said, the officials had to wait to clear the court of all the fans. They had to wipe the court down, get the game started again, and then they had the audacity to storm the court again. You already stormed the court once. You got your moment. Game's over now. Just go home. I mean, and like you said, it's gonna get to the point where they're gonna start trying to ban court storming, which, I mean, it's gonna be kind of hard to do because how are you gonna stop 2,000 students from running onto the court?
It's all about just facility management. You got to be able to just put up barriers big enough.
And that's the thing with the sport of basketball is, it's not like football where, you're up in stands separated from the field.
They still basketball, storm the field in football too.
Yeah, it happens. They climb fences and stuff, but that's the thing with basketball, where, they try and get you as close to the action as possible, and you have easy access to the court and to the players, and so, they might lean towards and try to start banning court storming, but it's definitely going to be a tough task for them to accomplish. But it might be the appropriate action to be taken if these kind of actions keep happening. So.
Well, we've had some great debates so far, and I'm not sure if we'll ever figure out the court storming, what should or shouldn't be done. But we'll be right back after a quick commercial break.
Hi, my name is Erica, and I work here as a team member at Rock and Yogurt, and I'm also a student at Slippery Rock. We were established in May of 2013. We offer different flavors of yogurt. We are located on Main Street of Slippery Rock and are right across the street from North Country Brewery. We have traditional flavors like vanilla and chocolate, and we also offer unique flavors like cinnamon, maple bacon donut, pumpkin, and blueberry.
Welcome back, everyone. We've got 3 more topics to get to, so let's get to it. With just a few games left in the regular season, number 1 Syracuse and number 4 Wichita State are still undefeated. Cameron, do you think either of these teams can finish undefeated?
I don't know if Syracuse can do it. It's kind of rare for a team to go undefeated in the regular season. I think Wichita State definitely has a better chance of doing it, but I don't think that guarantees them getting a number 1 seed in the tournament because of the conference they play in, and the NCAA doesn't. It's kind of like with football; they don't really think they have that hard of a schedule, which they don't. They don't play as hard of teams that Syracuse does, but I definitely think one of those two teams has a legitimate shot of finishing off the regular season undefeated. Now, whether they are still that way after their conference tournament, that'll have to be seen later. But I definitely think Wichita State has a real chance at ending the season undefeated.
You look at Syracuse's schedule; they play Boston College, and then they play at Duke. So, and then later on in the year, they also play at Virginia, and they're number 14 in the country. So, Syracuse beat Duke earlier in the year at the Carrier Dome in overtime, and I think that's going to be Syracuse's only loss, so I don't think they're going to finish the season undefeated. However, with Wichita State, they, like you said, a much easier schedule, but it depends how Wichita State wins these games. If they're blowing out their opponents, I can see them getting a number 1 seed. Maybe not the overall number 1 seed, because you've got Florida, who's still a tough competitor. They just jumped to number 2 after Arizona lost. So, I mean, Wichita State kind of got the shaft end of that, but so I can see Wichita State going undefeated. They are basically the strongest team right now in a weak conference. But Syracuse has been basically pulling off miracles this year, I think. You got Tyler Ennis, a freshman, making the 40-foot almost half-court shot against Pitt, winning by 1 against North Carolina State, winning by 2 against Duke in dramatic fashion. So Syracuse will still remain top 5 even with a loss at Duke, depending on how bad it is. But I can't see Syracuse pulling off a win against Duke. So I think there's only going to be one undefeated team going into the tournament, and that's Wichita State.
All right.
NCAA rule makers have proposed a new rule that would take effect starting in the 2014 season. The rule is that offenses will not be allowed to snap the ball until 10 seconds have run off the play clock. This rule is to give defenses a chance to make substitutions. Dave, what are your thoughts on this proposed rule?
It kind of helps. It really helps the defense, but I kind of understand what they're trying to get at here, because the defense is at such a disadvantage with all these targeting rules and helmet-to-helmet collisions and all that, roughing the passer and the pass interference calls and all face masks or personal foul face masks, and the offense can get that too. So it kind of helps the defense stay in the game. When you have a run-and-gun offense like Oregon, like Slippery Rock in D2 football, we saw what they did against IUP and having the best defense in the nation in D2 football, and that's what happens. But the rule, I think, is a little overkill. You're giving them such a break that you're slowing down an offense, but you're not giving the defense. You're not speeding up a defense. So what I think with this rule, I understand what they're trying to do, but I don't really like what they're trying to do with it, though.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the rule at all. Like you said, we saw when Slippery Rock played IUP this last year. IUP was the number 1 defense in the nation, and Slippery Rock runs such a hot, fast-paced, no-huddle offense that they were trying to get players in, off the field in position, and Slippery Rock was snapping the ball before the defense even had their matchups and knew where they needed to be, and that was a big factor in us beating them. And like you said, teams like Oregon, teams like Baylor, who run such a fast-paced offense, it's really going to hinder them because that's kind of what they thrive on, is that speed and running up there and tiring out the defenses. And supposedly they've done statistics on even the fastest-paced offenses rarely snap the ball before 30 seconds on the play clock. But I just think it's an unnecessary rule. Like you mentioned with the targeting rule, they reevaluated the targeting rule. They're making targeting reviewable. If they call it targeting, they can go look at it, and if they determine it's not targeting, the player stays in the game and all that. But I just think it's an unnecessary rule. I think it's just up to coaches and teams to adapt when they come up against that type of a team. It's just as if if you're going to go up against a team who plays a fast, it's hard to say a fast-paced defense, but they might utilize smaller, faster players, to use speed. You have to adjust to that. same thing. So I don't think it's really fair because it really only affects those teams that use a fast-paced offense. It's not an evenly distributed affecting rule. But so, I'm not a fan of it at all. I don't know why they feel the need to change it. I think it's exciting to see, some of those high-scoring games. I mean, we just saw one of the best national championship games in history, and and then you feel the need to change a rule. So I don't really know what's going through the rule makers' heads, but I guess we'll have to see whether it'll be decided in March. Whether it's going to go into effect or not, and it'll go into effect next year. And so if it does, we'll have to see how it plays out.
On Saturday, the U.S. men's hockey team defeated Russia in a shootout thanks to TJ Oshie. Due to a differing shootout format for the Olympics, Oshie, known as a shootout specialist, was able to take 6 of the United States' 8 shots, which he made 4, including the game winner. Cameron, what are your thoughts on the game?
It was a great game. Big game for the men's United States hockey team. Trying to get redemption after the last Winter Olympics, coming up just short against Team Canada, and haven't had a gold since the Miracle on Ice back in 1980. And so this was a very big game, kind of a nail biter. Went into double overtime and still tied after. And like I said, I'm not really a hockey guy, so I didn't really, when I read the report of what happened and how Oshie took 6 of our 8 shots, I was kind of confused because I didn't know how the whole format of it worked. But I read the report of how the men's U.S. hockey coach, Oshie's not really a big NHL superstar. I mean, he's a good player, but he said at some point in these Olympics we're gonna get in a shootout, and you're gonna want TJ Oshie on your team. And that, wouldn't you know it, that's exactly what happened. And Oshie came up big for the United States, making those 4 shots, including the game winner, and putting us past Russia. And we might have a similar game come, if we make it to the championship game or even in the semifinals. You might have another shootout that we come up against, and he's definitely going to be a very, very important player to have on that team.
Overall, I just think TJ Oshie's always been a great player, but on a kind of like a subpar team. Well, then they've been on the rise since the St. Louis Blues, but this game is just phenomenal for Team USA. To not be able to, like you said, just come up short against Canada last Olympics in Vancouver, to beat Russia in Sochi as well, because that was going to be the loudest game in the Olympics, next to the gold medal game if Russia's in it. So this game had so much riding on it. This is probably going to determine who's going to be in the gold medal game and who's going to be playing for bronze. So for TJ Oshie to come through the clutch for us is phenomenal. Dan Bylsma really knew what he was doing there, and overall, and give credit to Bobrovsky, the goalie for Russia, making a 6 stick-handed save on the 7th shot, TJ Oshie's 5th. So I mean, Malkin and Datsuk really kept Russia in there, but Oshie just kept holding us on his back, as in Marshawn Lynch terms.
Yeah, it was reported that after the 7th one, Oshie came to the bench and said, "I'm running out of moves, guys. You can only have so many shot moves in your repertoire." But luckily, he had just enough to pull out the victory for Team USA.
Well, everyone, that's our show. Please be sure to go ahead and like our Facebook page. Once again, for Cameron Collins, Big Dave Miller, I'm your host, Kristen Karam, and we'll see you guys next week.